Good morning, learners and viewers. Welcome to the session of Logistics and Supply Chain Management, MMPM 005. Today we will be talking about Unit 7, which is related to cost analysis and measurement. This comes under cost and performance measurement in supply chain management. Sometimes a company is unable to make sufficient profits despite of being a good range of products, better services, and even significant number of satisfied customers. There are several factors to which this shortfall may be attributed to, like insignificant sales, poor economic conditions, or tough conditions. But a major reason is lack of knowledge of possible losses. It is therefore important to evaluate the true cost for a cost object, that is, product, job services, or customers. The clear picture of the true cost will help in producing opportunities to minimize losses by making cost improvements. It is important to fully understand the various aspects of logistics costing because logistics management significantly impacts the firm's overall profitability in business in terms of both return on investment, that is ROI, and the shareholders' value as well. Logistics cost. The majority of organizations' accounting procedures still employ ambiguous techniques for allocating shared and indirect expenses, which frequently distorts the true profitability of both product and consumers. However, standard accounting methods were designed to quantify product expenses, so they are typically inappropriate to analyzing the profitability of customers and marketplaces. Since logistics management is a flow-oriented concept aimed at integrating resources throughout a network that runs from suppliers to ultimate customers, it is important to have a way to monitor the cost and performance of that network. The lack of relevant cost information is likely one of the key reasons why many of the organizations have struggled to implement an integrated strategy to logistics and distribution management. The necessity to manage the entire distribution process as a system, taking into consideration the efforts of decisions made in one cost area on other cost areas, has ramification for the organization's cost accounting system. Generally, traditional accounting systems group cost into broad, aggregated categories, preventing the more precise details required to determine the exact costs of servicing consumers who purchase specific products. It becomes hard to show the impact on the cost rate of site. The logistics system without this facility to examine aggregated cost data. Generally, the effect of trades-off are assessed in two ways. First, from the point of view of their impact on total cost, and secondly, their impact on the sales revenue. Without an adequate logistics-oriented cost accounting system, it is extremely difficult to identify the extent to which a particular trade-off is cost beneficial. Total cost analysis. Logistics run throughout the process of supply chain, and therefore, in order to assess the performance of supply chain, total logistic cost is of utmost importance. It is required to follow a practice of costing that is why more activity based rather than being confined to traditional functional boundaries to incorporate changes in cost as and when a process changes. The outputs of a logistics system costs corresponding to those outputs are evaluated to determine the logistics cost. Mission costing is a method of costing whereby the total logistic cost is based on the total system cost of accomplishing desired logistic objectives, that is, the system outputs, as well as the cost of the various inputs used to meet these outputs. Often, decisions made in one area has unexpected impact on the other area. The purpose of total cost analysis in this context is to identify the changes in cost brought about by these decisions. Cost must therefore be viewed in incremental terms. The change in total cost caused by the change in the system. The addition of an extra warehouse to the distribution network will bring about cost changes in transport, inventory investment, and communications. It is the incremental cost difference between the 2 points that is the relevant accounting information for decision making in this case. The cost of logistics varies from industry to industry. For example, building materials and bricks will have very high logistics cost as compared to pharmaceuticals. Logistics becomes more and more expensive as the cost of fuel, land, safety, environmental conservation, and human resources increases. Cost drivers. Traditional cost accounting suffered shortcomings, especially in terms of logistics. Christopher discussed these issues as there is a general ignorance of the true cost of servicing different customers type, channels, market segments. Costs are captured at too high a level of aggregation. Full cost allocation still very supreme. Conventional accounting systems are functional in their orientation rather than output oriented. And companies understand product cost but not customer cost. The above mentioned issues circles around the problem of analyzing cost in terms of various stages of the overall value chain of the firm. To address this problem, it was necessary to take the basis of accounting from unit or product based to activity based. Activity based costing is a system of cost accounting based on activities which are considered as any event, unit of work, or task with a specific goal. Christopher again has summarized the rationale behind ABC as serving customers generated activity, activity, consumer resources, and resources cost money. The key to ABC, that is activity-based costing, is to seek out the cost drivers along the logistics pipeline that cause costs because they consume resources. Activity-based costing recognizes the relationship between cost, overhead activities, and manufacturing products and assign overhead and indirect costs to related products and services. ABC is an accounting technique that utilizes cost attachment rather than cost allocation to determine the actual cost of product and services. ABC can be used when there are varying products, cost of overhead is high, error cost is substantial, and competition is high. ABC also marks it easier to understand variable cost behaviors and cost of quality for activities and processes. ABC can be performed by identifying activities, determining cost for each activity, determining cost drivers, collecting activity data, and calculating product cost. The distinctive characteristics of customers in terms of ordering behavior and distribution requirements are separately accounted for in ABC. ABC employs a more logical cost allocation as the cost attached to each level of activity is identified, which in turn gives a better picture of the true cost of service. Cost of serving customers and channels. Once known, aids in making decisions regarding customer service policies or the sales terms to streamline the customer base or to encourage customers to change the product mix they order and so on. This exhaustive knowledge of individual customer profitability and channel costs help in achieving the long-term profits for a company. Customer profitability analysis is basically how lucrative is this customer compared to another is one of the core issues that traditional accounting system struggle with. Customer profitability is usually only measured at the gross profit level. That is, customer profitability is equal to net sales revenue generated by the customer in a given period minus the costs of goods sold. That is, for the purchase product mix. Numerous other expenditures must be considered before the true profitability of a single consumer can be determined. The same is true if we want to figure out how profitable various market groups or distribution groups are. Customer profitability study depicts a group of customers who aren't worth serving or who, in other words, aren't profitable. The primary notion of customer profitability analysis is based on discovering cost-cutting opportunities. If only good clients are developed. Customer profitability analysis helps in identifying profitable and non-profitable customers, which in turn helps managers devise strategies for dealing with consumers who are or who have high service expenses. Another way to receive some generalized direction for strategic decision is to use a customer profitability mix. The basic goal of all of these approaches is to create an accounting system that collects data on customer profitability on a regular basis. The figure depicts customer profitability metrics. Along the horizontal line, it is cost to the server, and on the vertical line, we can see that net sales value of customer account. We on the bottom side, it is low, it is moving to the high level, and on the horizontal line, it is moving from left to right, from low to high. This is basically a matrix. Direct product profitability, what we call it as DPP. It is a technique of logistics cost analysis corresponding to particularly retail industry. Just as customers profitability analysis, DPP aims to identify all costs related to a product or order as it moves through distribution channel. Often, the total cost of ownership becomes so substantial that it reduces or sometimes eliminates the net profit of an item. Therefore, DPP is important for distributors and retailers in order to influence it favorably and become a low-cost supplier, as well as to reduce customers' cost of ownership. Now, we move to Unit 8, that's related to benchmarking. That is best practices and benchmarking in SC. The first thing is what is meant by benchmarking. Benchmarking is a continuous process of measuring product, services, and practices against the toughest competitors or those companies recognized as industry leaders. Benchmarking is an external focus on internal activities, functions, or operations in order to achieve continuous improvement. Starting from an analysis of existing activities and practices, within an organization. The objectives are to understand existing processes or activities and then to identify an external point of reference or standard by which an activity can be measured or judged. Organizations that introduces benchmarking correctly can use it to make a quantum leap in their performance and develop a culture in which managers and staff constantly searches for improvements. Within logistics and supply chain management, benchmarking can be used for a number of different purposes, from assessing the performance of the entire operation through prioritizing improvements to searching for the off-the-shelf improvement strategies in a specific area of a logistics or supply chain activity. Benchmarking targets the critical success factors, what we call it as CSFs, of a specific organization. What needs to be done is to ensure long-term success. When, where does management see the potential for competitive advantage? Benchmarking helps to identify those features critical to ongoing success as well as to those parts of the organization that are less important and from which resources may be diverted. In benchmarking, a role describes in essence what a person or function does for an organization. What responsibilities, services, and tasks are offered to a customer or client by the organization? Now, what is the importance and what is the role of benchmarking? Benchmarking provides the basis for meeting and exceeding stakeholders' expectations. Understanding its potential benefits requires understanding the type of benchmarking to be deployed and the purpose of conducting such an exercise. While benchmarking can be performed at any time, it is often undertaken as a response to an information need associated with a project or issues within the organization. The situations that may trigger the benchmarking processes are one, operations or logistics and supply chain improvement efforts. Secondly, management and organizational changes. Thirdly, merger and acquisition. Next can be competitive threats and cost reduction initiatives. Benchmarking in any of these situations is a logical step in developing new objectives, setting new performances, standards and metrics, and redesigning process and procedures. The technique of benchmarking can be focused on the specific processes, activity or functions, but this is only a part of the answer. Now, an associated issue is the depth to which the analysis is to be performed. Studies can be focused vertically upon functions and departments or horizontally upon specific processes and or activities. A well-planned, systematic and structured benchmarking program can provide organizations with a number of important benefits. The search for industry, best practices, and subsequent efforts to maintain competitive superiority effectively provides the basis for superior performance. Now, we'll see what this benchmarking process is actually. A systematic approach. Many organizations have developed their own processes. All approaches are fundamentally the same and are based on Deming's plan to do cycle, check and act cycle, what we call it as PDC. Step one is prioritize what to benchmark. Number two, identify comparable companies. Third one, data and information collection. Fourth, determine current performance gap. Fifth, project future performance levels. And sixth one is communicate findings and gain acceptance. Seventh step is establish functional goals. Eighth step is develop an action plan to execute them. Then comes step 9 to implement and monitor. And the step 10 is recalibrate benchmarks. Now, we will move on to benchmarking the supply chain, that is SCOR model. The best known benchmarking system is the five-part supply chain operations reference SCOR. The five parts are plan, that is planning activities for supply and demand. Second one is source, purchasing activities. Third one is to make, that is related to production activities. Deliver is to distribution activities. And return, that is closed loop supply chain activities. The SCUR model defines over 200 process elements, 550 measurable matrices, and 500 best practices. The best practice describes the technique used by benchmarking firms that have scored very well in the matrices. SCUR combines these matrices with performance attributes to facilitate comparison of companies that compete by using different strategies. For example, low cost versus responsiveness. We can see over here in this diagram, if we talk about plan, that is demand, supply, planning, and management. We are moving from left to right. That means the another one is source. Then comes your make. Fourth one is deliver. And the fifth one is return. This return is related to both raw material as well as finished goods. Good benchmarking is about managing continuous improvement strategically, identifying stakeholders and ensuring their interests are being met by any benchmark-based activity and managing changes. Benchmarking is a tool for enacting change. The critical success factor for any change is the creation of additional value in the eyes of stakeholders of the business. Benchmarking is all about finding new ways of enacting business processes and using companies' precise resources to serve its stakeholders' needs in a better way. In putting benchmarking to work in the supply chain, it is worth keeping in mind that change will occur once the process has started, but by its nature, it will cause participants to look at their new work with a new set of eyes. Problems will be uncovered and new and creative solutions will be developed. What are the challenges faced in implementation of benchmarking, irrespective of the type and scope of benchmarking? The critical factors that are needed to be ensured are senior management supports the process of benchmarking and are committed to continuous improvement. Secondly, the objectives are clearly defined at the outset. Thirdly, the scope of the work is appropriate in the light of objectives, resource, and time available, and the experience level of those involved. And the last one is sufficient resources are available to complete projects within a given time frame, and that projects are selected based upon a prioritization linked to the achievement of competitive advantage. In general, it is important to avoid benchmarking for benchmarking's sake, focusing entirely on comparisons of hard performance measures rather than softer processes and activities that enable the achievement of good practice. Spending too long in one part of the process at the expense of others, expecting that benchmarking will be easy and quick. expecting to find benchmarking partners comparable in all aspects to their own organization. Now we move to next unit, that is performance measurement and evaluation of supply chain management. Supply chain management plays a key strategic role in increasing organizational effectiveness and accomplishment of organizational goals such as enhanced competitiveness, better customer service, and increased profitability. Today's management cannot afford to focus only on the company's performance in a vacuum. There are emerging requirements to focus on the performance of the extended supply chain or network in which the company is a partner. An extended supply chain is one that involves not only tier 1 buyers and suppliers, but also the end suppliers, suppliers to end buyers, that is, buyers to buyer. The competition is at the chain or network level, that is, supply chain versus supply chain, with emphasis on continuous improvement across the extended supply chain. Supply chain performance refers to the extended supply chain activities in meeting end customer requirements, including product availability, on-time delivery, and all the necessary inventory and capacity in the supply chain to deliver that performance in a responsive manner. Supply chain performance crosses organizational boundaries since it includes raw material component, sub-assemblies, and finished products, and distribution through various channels to end customers. Supply chain performance also crosses traditional functional areas such as procurement, manufacturing, distribution, marketing and sales, and research and development, etc. Figure shows the evolution of performance measures for supply chain from single enterprise, single measure to multiple enterprise multiple measures. This figure is basically evolution of performance measures of the supply chain sources, and it was presented by Brian Hoffman presented. This is basically a graph or a figure or a relationship between dimensions and organization. And this graph is basically coming down as the number of enterprises are increasing and cross enterprises are also increasing. Kennerly and Ning have suggested a four-phase evolutionary process for supply chain performance measurement, which is depicted in the figure, which showcases the measurement system as a closed loop in which continuous evaluation of the performance measures is considered. If we talk about performance measurement system, it consists of four measures, that is modify, deploy, use, and reflect. What is the need for supply chain performance measures? Several factors that contribute to management's need for new types of measure for managing the supply chain includes the lack of measures that capture performance across the entire supply chain. Second, the requirement to go beyond internal matrices and take a supply chain perspective. Third one is to need to determine the interrelationship between corporates and supply chain performance. Next one is the complexity of supply chain management. After that, the total requirement to align activities and share point performance measurement information to implement strategy that achieves supply chain objectives. And lastly, the desire to expand the line of sight within the supply chain. The requirement to allocate benefits and burdens resulting from functional shifts within the supply chain, and the need to differentiate the supply chain to obtain a competitive advantage. And lastly, the goal of encouraging cooperative behavior among corporate functions and across firms in the supply chain. What is this measurement system consist of? Measurement systems have been used in process management, and Bloomberg, who focused on the audit process in this part, has suggested the following definitions of a measurement system: a set of related measures described by rules and procedures for the collection, compilation, and communication of data that in combination reflects key performance aspect and characteristics of the process in question effectively enough to admit intelligent analysis. If called fraud to action. What are the characteristics of effective management system? The effective measurement system is one that has the following characteristics properties: inclusiveness, that is measurement of all pertinent activities; universality, allow for comparison under various operating conditions; measurability, that means the data measures are measured; consistency, measure consistent with organizational goals. Supply chain performance measurement system. A performance measurement system can be defined as the set of matrices required to quantify both the efficiency and effectiveness of machine. Following questions must be addressed to create a sound performance measurement system. What to measure? How are multiple individual measures integrated into a measurement system? How often to measure? And how and when measures to be evaluated? So keeping that in mind, supply chain balance scorecard comes. A measurement system based on balance card, that is Kaplan and Norton, uses four perspectives, namely financial perspective, customer perspective, innovation and learning perspective, and internal business perspective. Supply chain balance record emphasizes the interdependent as well as dependent nature of supply chain and recognizes the need of ascertaining the extent to which firms effectively work together and functions are coordinated and integrated. It also stimulates management to create other measures appropriate to their unique circumstances, but it lacks in aligning overall supply chain objectives with objectives for companies. Weber and Spain have developed a model for a balanced scorecard in the supply chain context, which is shown in the figure. This model describes the links of different perspectives to goals of supply chain management and when what are the measures to be adopted in each perspective. Here we see if it is related to internal business perspective. Internally, it is a relation between goals and measures. If the organization has an initial goal of waste reduction, that what has to be done, what measure has to be taken, the supply chain cost of ownership is involved. If we talk about time compression, that means supply chain cycles efficiency. Flexible response and the number of choices, average response time. Now, how much choices are available? And what about the cost? Unit cost reduction. That is 4% of supply chain target. cost achieved. The last one, after performing the activity. And if we talk about the customer's perspective, in terms of goals and measures, the customer view of point of services can be addressed as number of customers contact point. Customer view of timelines. That means a relative customer orders response time between two, first and second, third and fourth, second and third, and so on. Customer's view of flexibility. That is customer's perception of flexible response. And fourth one is customer's value. It is related to customer's value. And if we take in terms of financial perspective, the goal everybody has, every organization has that is profit margin. That is profit margin by supply chain partners. Cash flow, cash to cash cycle, that is movement of the cash. Revenue growth, it is related to customer growth and profitability. And the fourth one is return on assets, that is return to supply chain assets. Supply chain balance scorecard emphasizes the interdependent as well as independent nature of supply chain and recognizes the need to ascertain the extent to which firms effectively work together and functions are coordinated and integrated. It also stimulates management to create other measures appropriate to their unique circumstances, but it lacks in aligning overall supply chain objectives with objectives for companies. Driver and Spay have developed a model for a balanced scorecard in the supply chain cost. The model describes the link of different perspectives of goal of SCM and then what are the measures to be adopted in each perspective. This is function-based measurement system. In this system, the measures are aggregated to cover the different processes in the supply chain. The figure shows the customer order path and then it covers what are the measures available in each process. Perspective-based measurement system. This system presents six unique sets of metrics to measure performance of supply chain. The different approaches to supply chain leads to different awareness of what should be measured to assess performance. The six different perspectives are system dynamics, operation research, information technology, logistics, marketing, organization, and strategy. If we talk about system dynamics, and what is the purpose of this? It is managing the trade-offs along the complete supply chain and how it is related to performance measures, that means capacity utilization, inventory level, dropouts timeline for demand information, time to adapt changes in demand. If you talk about operation research, it is related to calculating optimum solution within a given set of degrees of freedom. That is logistics cost per unit or service level time to deliver. In terms of logistics, it is integrating generic processes sequentially, vertically, and horizontally. And its relation with the performance measures includes integration, lead time, order cycle time, and flexibility. If we talk about marketing, so it is related to segmenting products and markets and combine both using the right distribution channel. Performance includes customer satisfaction, distribution cost per unit, and market share, channel cost. Organizations basically determining and mastering the need of to coordinate and manage relationships And the performance measure related to this is the transaction cost and density of relationship. And lastly, it is strategy. It is merging competencies and relocated into the deepest segment of the profit pool. And the performance measure related to is return on investment and time to market. Supply chain operation reference model, SCOR. One way to understand a supply chain is to use a process model. The Supply Chain Council created an SCOR model, which is framework for examining a supply chain in detail, defining and categorizing processes that make up the supply chain, assigning metrics to the process, and reviewing comparable benchmarks. Many companies use the SUR model to understand and improve their supply chains. These companies include aerospace and defense manufacturers, large consumer product manufacturers, and third-party logistics providers. The SOR model is the only supply chain framework that links performance measures, best practices, and software requirements to a detailed business process model. SCR model integrates the well-known concept of business process reviewable benchmarking and process measurement into a cross-functional framework. SCR defines supply chain an integrated process of plan, source, make, deliver, and return, spanning suppliers to customers, customers aligned with operational strategy, material work, and information flows. SCR does not depend to describe following business processes or activities: sales and marketing, research and technology development, product development, some elements of post-delivery customer support, and links can be made to process not included within the model scope, such as product development, etc. SCUR assumes but does not explicitly address training, quality, and information technology. SCUR provides the detailed and exhaustive list of performance measures for each activity and processes, aligns the detailed performance measures with the strategic objectives, and provides the best practices and IT source for each measurement. It requires a well-defined infrastructure, resource and project-based completion approach. Implementation of such an exhaustive system requires fully dedicated managerial resources and continuous business process reengineering to align the business with the best practices. Next one is dimension-based measurement system. This system suggests that any supply chain can be measured in three key dimensions. It was proposed by Hausman. These three things, three dimensions include services, assets, and speed. Service relates to the ability to anticipate, capture, and fulfill customers' demand with the personalized products and on-time delivery. Asset involves anything with commercial value, primarily inventory and cash, and speed includes matrices, which are time related, they track responsiveness and velocity of the execution. Every supply chain should have at least one performance measure on each of these three critical dimensions. As the supply chain is related to two things that are built to strong or built to work, if we compare these two activities, that is customer service matrices. If you talk about Build to stock, that is BT. That means line item fill rate, complete order fill rate, delivery process on time, backgrounded, yeah, back ordered or lost sales, and number of back orders. And if we talk about in terms of bill to order, there quoted customers response time is quoted, percentage on time completion is there, deliver process on time, dollar or late orders, and number of late orders. So you can see what is the difference between bill to stock and bill to order in terms of supply chain. Aging refers to maintaining data on how long it can take to fill a back order, or how long does it to complete an order which is late. Tracking this data and maintaining it is an accessible database enables a periodic with interface-based measurement system. This framework aligns performance at each link within the supply chain. The framework begins with the linkage at the focal company and moves outwards a link at a time. The link by link approach provides a meaning for aligning performance from point to point or to point to consumption with the overall objective of maximizing stakeholder value for the total sum as well as for each company. The framework consists of several steps. Map the supply chain for point of origin to point of consumption to identify where key and linkages are. Use of customer relationship management and customer supplier relationship management process to analyze each link and determine the additional value can be created from supply chain. Develop customer and supplier profit and loss statements to assess the effect of relationship on profitability and stakeholders' value of the firm. Design supply chain processes and activates to achieve performance objectives. Next one is establish non-financial performance measures that align individual behavior with supply chain processes objectives and financial goals. Next one is compare stakeholders' value and value capitalization across firms with supply chain objectives and revise process and performance measures as necessary. Replicate steps at each link in the supply chain. Now, we have studied different types of measurement system. Now, what is the comparison between the different management systems described above and different views of generating the supply chain performance measures? The systems have been compared using five dimensions: hierarchy, results, linkages, determinants, that is quality, flexibility, and stability, whether it is dynamic or static. It is evident from the above explanation that supply chain balance scorecard covers all the parameters. The system is easy to implement if the company strategies is well defined. Hierarchical based measurement system encompasses all parameters, but at one time it tries to cover only one perspective. So, a hybrid model of balance score cards and hierarchical can be the other alternative. That is, at each hierarchical level, we define the measures for each perspective. Perspective-based system also sees the measure in isolated manner, but it covers some unique perspectives which are not covered in the balance scorecard, like system dynamics and operational research, which provides a great help in measuring dynamic capability of supply chain. SCMR covers all relevant parameters required in the system and tries to cover the whole supply chain in standard set of processes. It also covers the different dimensions at each level of supply. The model applicability is easier where ERP and BPR practices are in progress, and large set of data collection softwares are already in place. In SMEs, and especially in Indian context, applicability is questionable due to extra cost of maintaining such an exhaustive system. Interference-based measuring system does not cover the non-financial measures and strategic links to different linkages is not possible. The system gives more emphasis on strengthening the internal and external linkage to improve the overall supply chain. What are the notable threats in performance of measurement system in supply chain management? Ethics in supply chain management, personal ethics, ethics within the supply chain, and behavioral ethics are considered three important and significant aspects of supply chain, as the operations are becoming increasingly global. With sales performance anxious to sell, agents who are purchasing the products often have personal dilemmas, and therefore supply chain is more susceptible to ethical lapses. Ethical decisions are critical for long-term success of any organization. The performance of the whole supply chain can be affected. Therefore, many companies follow strict codes of conduct and rules to check personal ethics within the organization. Firms needs to establish the same standard followed within the organization to the supplier as well. Society expects an ethical performance throughout the supply chain. Gap Auxiliaries reported that out of its 3,000 factories globally, 90% failed the initial evaluation. It was found that 25% of the factories were engaged in verbal abuse in China, and more than 50% of African factories are operating without proper safety devices. Good ethics extends to doing business that supports the conservation and renewal of resources. The whole supply chain requires evaluation of the environmental impact from raw material procurement to the manufacturing, the final product is use and final disposal. For instance, to maintain the supply of fish and chips to Walmart, the suppliers in Southeast Asia needs to abide by the standards of Global Aquaculture Alliance. Environmental ethics can be enforced using third-party auditors, governmental and non-governmental agencies, and in-house personnel as well. It helps supply chain managers to ensure the performance of second and third tier suppliers as well. Establishing sustainability in supply chain. The performance of a supply chain system is also affected by the ability to return the product back to the region for resale, repair, reuse, recycle, and dispose. Although the forward supply chain is mostly being studied, but the impact of reverse logistics is also a significant challenge. The strive for reusing the products, new challenges for the sustainable supply chains. Sometimes the synonym for reverse logistics is used is a closed loop supply chain, which refers to a proactive approach towards the design of the supply chain where all the forward and reverse flows are optimized. For instance, IBM has established a systematic method for dismantling used equipment from components that have some value, like hard disk assemblies. IBM has realized millions of dollars of savings in procurement costs by using dismantling channel of used parts. Performance measurement for supply chain in the industry fourth era. Industry in fourth generation and also known as fourth industry revolution is currently attracting high focuses from researchers and practitioners in the operations management area. Use this new approach will change the way in how companies compete and how the customer's value is created. Industry 4, with a focus on supply chain, is still developing, but it has a significant potential of value creation, transforming and traditional supply chains. Industry 4 focuses on disruptive technologies causing significant impact on supply chains. Industry 4 technologies like 3D printing, big data analytics, virtual reality, cloud technologies, cybersecurity, Internet of Things, machine to machine communication, radio frequency identification, drones, nanotechnology, and business intelligence will have a massive impact on supply chains performance. The alignment of customer demands and supply chain operations will be changed radically, and the impact will be seen on markets, business models, organization skills, and deeply changing supply chains. Now, we move to distribution network planning. Unit 10, which is transportation mix. As the name suggests, we will be talking about transportation. Transportation happens to be the most fundamental part of strategic logistics management. Transport costs include all costs associated with movement of the products from one location to another. The average transport cost ranges from 5 to 6% of the recommended retail price of the product. Transportation is the movement of products, materials, and services from one area to another, both inbound and outbound. It can also be said as movement from one node of the supply chain to the another. The ideal organization following M2O is the Indian Army, with the principle wherever you are, we reach you in time and in the best and the cheapest mode available. Indian Army is a typical example of ideal transportation mixes in our country. It uses the aerial, land, sea, rail routes to maintain its forces spread all over the country and even abroad. The logistics is enormous, and the various modes of transport are airlift, train, trucks, animals, and human beings. It transports supplies, ration, fuel, oil, lubricants, arms, ammunition, clothing, and personal goods over vast distance and over varied trade and climatic conditions. Here we can see an example of figure which depicts an ideal transportation mix network. You can see that the movement of material having different sources of transportation. If we talk about railhead, so it can be by rail from Central because fuel. We have seen that normally our petrol reaches us from the plant by the help of rail. The other ways which are used of how the end user gets the product. It can be by road, animal, human himself, half trucks, aerial truck, air landing, or by water ways. And these are the different transportation methods which are being deployed universally for providing the services as well as goods to the end user. With this, we will be concluding the session and we will be continuing in our next session with this part